All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started as we normally start at 11 a.m. And just to be mindful of everybody's time on a beautiful Saturday here. And thank you for coming and thank you for joining us for our August DFC community meeting. My name is Patrick Joseph, and I'm the coordinator for long-term recovery and rebuild with the Dixie Fire Club. This is what the DFC is. It's a long-term recovery group. So the Dixie Fire Long-Term Recovery Group, known as the DFC, Dixie Fire Collaborative, is a collaboration of nonprofit, faith-based, local, state, or national organizations that work together to share information, resources that can help address the needs of individuals and families affected by the Dixie wildfire. The stated mission of the DFC is working to fulfill the unmet needs of Dixie fire survivors and helping to rebuild the communities of Greenville, Indian Falls, Canyon Dam, Warner Valley, and surrounding areas of Plymouth County. All programs shall support this mission and purpose, and all who work for or on behalf of the DFC shall understand and adhere to that purpose. So next slide, please. Well, we wanted, typically when we have a meeting, we have a list of presenters, and then each one of those presenters might share 5, 10, 15 minutes of information. Then we hold Q&A till after the fact, just so that each presenter has an opportunity to share their information. Today, we're going to kind of kick things off with a general community forum, so that if you had just general questions anyway that weren't covered in today's lineup, but you just had basic general questions, we'd be happy to answer them, or at least if I can't answer them today, or if somebody else that has that information, or potentially if somebody doesn't have that information here, I can research it and find it out for you. So what I would like to do, though, is just to kind of give a little bit of background and a little bit of a scene setter, and maybe your question will be answered if I share some of that information up front. Okay, so let me give you a little bit about, we shared the general mission and purpose of the DFC, but the DFC, going back a couple of years ago, following the Dixie Fire, formed with a collection of volunteers. Those volunteers that kind of just started organically, and to the point where then they could move out and start to coalesce around different lines of effort that anybody at the time thought might be helpful for fire recovery. And because of the needs at that time, a lot of the aspects of what the DFC was doing was focused on immediate relief or recovery aspects as people that were directly affected by the fire. And as the fire continued to go through the fall of 2021, what kind of band-aids, right? What do you need? How do we do it? How can we work on this? So for all the way up until last September, the DFC has remained a volunteer organization with the exception of myself. I was hired by the DFC last September as the coordinator. It's a full-time position. In order to get some assistance, because there was a lot to be learned at that time, North Valley Community Foundation, which is an organization out of Chico, California, they had a tremendous amount of experience working in campfire. So the North Valley Community Foundation, they've been in existence in Chico since the late 90s, and they were focused on community efforts in the greater Butte area, Chico, et cetera. With the campfire, when that started in November of 2018, North Valley Community Foundation was contacted just because people knew who they were and they knew their reputation, and they received donations. And then they went into full-on fire recovery mode and provided a variety of different funds, of which they still do today, that they can then allocate to different nonprofit organizations to work towards fire recovery aspects. So generally speaking, where they apply their money to is through a grant process. When an organization, and there's dozens that they still support in Paradise and Butte County, related to campfire, and most recently related to park fire. North Valley Community Foundation, they hold the funds, and then they work with other groups to help distribute those funds on those wildfire recovery needs. So as this volunteer group was taking shape, DA Hollister here in Plymouth County, he, along with the district attorneys from our neighboring and adjoining counties that were also affected by Dixie Fire, they had filed what was called a civil prosecution against PG&E. And in the spring, I believe, of 2022, those district attorneys, they settled with PG&E, and Plumas County received roughly $17.2 million in that civil prosecution. Now, quick public service announcement. This is entirely different. This is entirely different fund of money that you may be hearing about that Plumas County is now deliberating on with regard to other expenses. So Plumas County also, just like anybody can, that was affected by the wildfire, they went into a litigation settlement with PG&E, and they received $7.8 million from PG&E. So it's two separate, entirely different cases by two separate entities of the county representing different things. Let me back up to that 17.2. When the county received, when DA Hollister received that $17.2 million, those funds were distributed to a number of organizations throughout the county. Number one was Plymouth Fire Safe Council. Plymouth Fire Safe Council received $5 million. So that's where, if you see the programs that Plymouth Fire Safe Council is running today, it's because of that funding. Then Dixie Fire Collaborative received $3 million. The money that we still have to this day, that's really where that money came from. It came from that DA Hollister settled civil prosecution. $2 million went to the Plymouth County Office of Education. They have a foundation that they're using that money to go towards educational programs across the county for any school that's in the Plymouth County Office of Education, not to be confused with the Unified School District. Sierra Institute received $1 million. The Chambers of Commerce across the county received, I think, $300,000 apiece. And then there was $1 million that was split up across all of the fire districts across Plymouth County. Plymouth Rural Services received $250,000. The Plymouth Crisis Intervention and Response Center, I think I got their letters right there. They also received $250,000. So when people ask, like, hey, where'd all this money come from? That's precisely where it came from. And that's the tricky part here. And let me, okay, so a little bit on that. So I'll cover this here when I get down to grants and funding. So let me talk about the organization of, yes, ma'am.
On the $7.8 million, could you explain how that money came to the county? And
so as near as I can tell, and I'll direct you to a website too that the county operates that has this information as well. Theoretically, in the year 2022, the county council for Plymouth County worked with a law firm to file a suit against PG&E for their property property loss. There was a number of claims that the county identified. They are in the position of where they need to pay back pay for overtime wages for county individuals that supported throughout the fire. So they want to recoup some of that expense. There was heavy equipment that they lost in the fire. The town hall here in Greenville and the library. Those were also, that's property that they lost.
so that was the list of items that was slated in the lawsuit for recovery.
You know, so I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't know exactly when others that have asked, those are some of that's the reasoning that the county has given for why they filed the suit in the first place. Miss Deborah Lucero, who's the county administrative officer, in October of 2023, last fall at a board of supervisors meeting, she gave a presentation that described much of what I'm describing to you right now. And I'll be happy. Yes, ma'am. And I'll be happy to point you in the direction of, it's on the county's website.
So is that money available for then and not for, if it was money that was slated for rehabilitation, like a lot of people received money for their, their homes to burn down, was that money slated to rebuild those things that were?
Not for individuals. So it's directly, that money was received by the county for the county's losses. So anything that the county of Plymouth, that they had assets wise, anything related to their employment during the fire, anything that contributes to their overall needs based off of what they sustained in terms of damage, property damage, et cetera, during the fire, it's up to the county and the Board of Supervisors to determine how that money should be spent. And that is actually going underway right now. So it's been a month, with Ms. Lucero initiating that conversation in October of 2023. That conversation is still going on. And in mid-July, Supervisors Goss and McGowan voted to establish an ad hoc subcommittee on how these funds should be spent. So District 2 and District 3, a lot of heavily affected by the fire. So those two supervisors are working on that. And a number of participants have come. We've had 2 meetings thus far and a third this Wednesday. It's open to anybody who'd like to attend, to where recommendations, suggestions, opportunities exist for the county to potentially fund different projects or things that can reinforce the recovery aspects. Of late, what's been discussed is that the county also has $1,766,000 in insurance money. That money is there was insurance received as a direct result of the town hall and the library. Again, I don't know much about insurance and no expert on this whatsoever. Theoretically, in my mind, I would think if you received that money, insurance money for those 2 buildings, then it would probably it would contribute to rebuilding them or something comparable to what existed before, is what is just kind of a common, but that's just my understanding. Does that answer your question? Okay. So with regard to the organization of the Dixie Fire Collaborative, so we have a steering committee. The steering committee meets on the 1st and 3rd Mondays of every single month, unless there's something extraordinary. And we meet from 3 to 5. The link, and we're going to do around the horn on our website here in a little bit. Anybody can attend that meeting whenever you like. The link, the Zoom link to that meeting is on our website, as well as agendas, minutes, etc. And happy to have anybody join us. Our current steering committee is Dax Albrecht. He represents Indian Falls. Kaylee Bentz, who's a business owner here in Greenville. Trina Cunningham, who's seated right over there. Matt Fogarty, who lives in Crescent Mills. Shelby Lung, also a member. He's been a member since the start. Danny Manning as well. Marcia Roby. Danny Steyer is our treasurer. He's also here today. Thank you for joining us, Danny. Lyda Scoggin, she represents Warner Valley. So she, not only is she with the Dixie Fire Collaborative, but she also sits with a committee up in Warner Valley called the Friends of Warner Valley, and they communicate and talk about their needs in the Warner Valley area. And then Greg Walsh was also newly elected this past February, and he is focusing on housing. So the initial makeup started in the fall-ish of 2021 and kind of proceeded for 14 months or so. And then in January of 2023, there was an election for the steering committee, and that's where new members were added. Dax Albrecht he had been named because the previous steering committee member from Indian Falls earlier to that point had decided to step down, and Dax stepped up, and then he was elected into that spot in January of 23. And then Matt Fogarty was also elected at that time. And then this past February 24, we added 4 new members. It was Kaylee Bentz, Trina Cunningham, Danny Steyer, and Greg Walsh were elected. And each term, this past January, we started in December, publicizing if anybody wanted to join. We were talking about trying to get as much representation either from a geographic area or from like a functional area. If somebody had Greg wanted to take up the housing aspects because he had a background in painting, exterior painting, is that correct?
Yeah, painting and construction.
Painting and construction. So there were things that he was sort of privy to just with his life experience, right? So that's an example of sort of like a functional need that was met. Whereas like a geographic need, Lyda has been holding it down for Warner Valley. We've reached out to members of Genesee Valley, Canyon Dam, and had conversations like, hey, would you like to do this? And sometimes it's just limitations with time and effort that people can provide. And so try to afford people the opportunity. But if it's not for them at that time and place based off of what's happening in their life, then we respect that, but still try to keep up the communication to say, hey, whether or not on the steering committee, doesn't mean that you still can't advocate and say, hey, this is what we need. So that's one part of it. And then lastly, the organization, myself, the coordinator. So again, I'm a full-time paid position. The steering committee last spring, summer, they allocated a portion of the money that the DFC has to provide for my position. Now, back to the organization. The Dixie Fire Collaborative is not its own 501c3 organization. We are not a nonprofit ourselves. We're a subchapter of the North Valley Community Foundation, who is our fiscal sponsor. They provide all of our fiscal management as well as legal, administration, and insurance, et cetera. And I am all my pay, human resources type thing is all done through North Valley Community Foundation. Because the insight there is that for the Dixie Fire Collaborative, and this is what I inherited in September, and this is what I still understand, but the steering committee is kind of at this transitional phase of what next. But the DFC was always supposed to be a temporary entity. So when it was created, nobody thought that they wanted to invest a lot of time, money, and effort into creating a whole nother nonprofit if this thing was going to go away in months or a year or two. I'm halfway through this position that I serve in is funded for another year, no more than. So that means that in a month it could go away, or 2 months. Whenever the usefulness of this position is done, then poof, midnight strikes and everything turns back into pumpkins, right? So that's a little bit. And so my role is I'm not a voting member of the steering committee, and I just help facilitate so if somebody says, hey, we want to submit a grant, point them in the right direction, or bring it to the steering committee. So I don't get to vote. And moreover, the two previous chairs of the steering committee, so one was Sue Weber, and she left the DFC last September when I came aboard. And previous to that was Clint Cobley. He left in the spring of 2023. They were both the co-chairs. Neither of them were voting members either of the steering committee. So a recommendation comes forth, and then it goes to the steering committee for deliberation. I'll talk to that a little bit about in process right here. So grants and funding. And that's not the only, like a large part, again, collaborative. A large part of this is facilitating networks. And that happens on the daily, weekly, monthly. Someone will say, hey, do you know who's doing this? You know what? I don't, let me find out. And then it's really trying to make connections, because the DFC is not, I'm one deep, right? And we have a tremendous amount of other organizations that have volunteered till their fingers have bled. And that's the goodness. Like that's where the work happens. Rotary, Chamber, American Legion, even the 4-H kids, Little League. I mean, the list goes on and on. The schools, right? So it's really about forcing those connections, and that's the C in DFC, collaborative, right? Now, there's money, right? And of course, the almighty dollar always becomes a big question of how that works. So grant guidelines and process, quote unquote, this grant program, that's a grant program that the DFC operates through North Valley Community Foundation, will focus on post-fire unmet community priorities that include, but are not limited to, housing, capacity building, economic development, and overall health and wellness. This program seeks to incentivize holistic strategies that include all three phases: relief, recovery, and resilience. So back to grant submission. So the grants are held in funds by the North Valley Community Foundation, and there's an eligibility review that happens. So I have a program manager that I communicate with there, who, if I don't get notification, she'll say, hey, there's a grant that's been applied. The first thing that, and this is what, by being with NVCF, that they can help us do, is that they review it and just make sure everything's up to snuff, that it's a 501c3 organization. Yes, ma'am.
So when the grants came in, the Butte Valley Community Foundation was responsible for awarding the grants.
North Valley Community Foundation, they hold that $3 million that I referenced earlier. That's one grant that they hold, one fund, I should say, that they hold. They have a separate fund that is 100% theirs. So when the Dixie Fire happened,
the separate fund was held with North Valley Community. Is that what you're saying?
yes. So both funds are held with North Valley Community Foundation.
And what funded each fund?
So they're both for fire recovery, but one is solely owned, let's say, by North Valley Community Foundation.
What do you mean owned?
It's so before the Dixie Fire Collaborative ever existed, North Valley Community Foundation was contacted just by people that had experience with them in Camp Fire. So people just started calling them, businesses, corporations, individuals, and said, hey, we want to donate money to the Dixie Fire because we know that you guys did this in Camp Fire.
So it's outside contribution.
Yes, ma'am.
That came
Well
into
said.
the
Outside
501c.
contributions, and it had nothing to do with anybody here in Greenville or Warner Valley or anywhere.
Yeah.
People had experience working with them and said, hey, we're gonna contribute money to the Dixie Fire. You're gonna need it. So they established a fund in their own right, and that's
And
there.
administered those funds, and then the second funding source.
When DA Hollister had the civil prosecution, 3 million came to the Dixie Fire. Gosh, where does it go? And then they established a separate fund that they hold.
And that 3 million was distributed earlier on by the list of people that you were.
It was received at the same time that the list of people that also received their money.
But was it North Valley Community Foundation that reviewed all of the information, all the reports that came back? They were the oversight of all the money that was spent. Is that
Yes, ma'am. They still help us with that. So we pay a 2% fee to them, which is they knocked it down from 5% to 2% just to help us out.
Did the Dixie Fire Collaborative make recommendations to the North Valley community to fund one grant over another? Were they part of the review process?
Yes, ma'am. So it typically starts with them, and they do a lot of the legal review just to when there's a grant that's been requested, that they look at the tax exempt status of the organization that's receiving it, that it's a 501c3 that's in good standing with the franchise board, the franchise tax board, the state's attorney general's office, and then also the IRS.
So the Butte Valley Community.
Northern Valley Community Foundation,
Provided the legal review.
and they still do.
And what about as far as ranking the grants? Did they provide?
No, they just, they're fairly agnostic in that regard. They say, as long as it meets the basic underpinnings of the grant guidelines, it's not really up for them to thumbs up or thumbs down something. They can give recommendations on how well maybe like a program has worked in another fire community. But they typically, they defer really heavily to the steering committee, that if it's something that is necessary for this local area.
So the steering committee decided the priority of funding.
Yes, ma'am. It
Oh.
usually starts and ends with the steering committee with whether or not it's something that they can fund.
And then the North Valley Community Foundation then awarded or wrote checks based on the Dixie Fire Collaborative's recommendations.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So then the funding goes from those funds to the organization that would be receiving.
And the oversight of the money spent, who has
So
responsibility?
then there's grant in the grant guidelines, then there's a 6-month reporting period. So 6, 12, and 18, so we have the life of the grant. Every 6 months, there's a reporting requirement.
So is that North Valley Community
So
Foundation's
we-
responsibility?
Yes, ma'am. So it's once a would-be recipient of the grant, they establish an account with North Valley Community Foundation in the
Okay.
grant portal. And then they go back to that module to routinely update on the progress.
But North Valley is responsible for oversight.
Yes, ma'am. They hold that for us.
Great,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you for clarifying that.
So I touched a little bit on that, the eligibility review, kind of nonprofit, vetted and confirmed. The application then usually comes to us. Sometimes it goes the other way. So someone will say, hey, we're looking to get funding for X, can we come to a steering committee meeting and give a presentation? And over the last 6 or 7 months, that's the way the business has been conducted. An organization will come and say, this is the need. And then I point them into the direction of how to start the grant process. And then the program manager at the North Valley Community Foundation helps with that as well. Okay, and so of late, with regard to the steering, yes, sir.
So Patrick, I just want to kind of get a little clarification because I think we had to be clear that North Valley Community Foundation got monies for Dixie Fire, which is totally separate from any monies that the DFC has control. And they administrate that, they had a whole different process and awarded 2 people that money. And only monies that the steering committee and the Dixie Fire Collaborative had any use or had any control over was the 3 million.
That's correct.
So,
Yes.
so there was a lot of money that came out separately that was administered directly through the Dixie, North Valley Community College that went through their, the Funders Roundtable or something along that line, but I just want to make sure it's clear that people, and actually, the Dixie Fire Collaborative also participated in that roundtable too, but I just want to kind of make this clear funding. Thanks.
Yes, so back to there's a roughly $1 million fund and then the $3 million fund. Anything that goes, like the North Valley Community Foundation, they have their own ability and their own authority, frankly, if they want to fund something that they think is, helps, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that the DFC needs to do the same. In a lot of ways, what we've done is tried to partner. So let's say it's a $100,000 grant request. 50,000 would come from the North Valley Community Foundation Fund that they operate separately, and then 50,000 would come from the DFC if it's something that everybody agrees on is a worthwhile meets the needs.
Yes, Dave, real quick.
Yes.
There's in the lot, there's two cars. There's a redder one and a grayer one towards the far end, towards the roundhouse. They're bringing in a double wide or a modular home in there, and they need cars moved. So if you have a red car or silver car on that side of the road towards the roundhouse, you go. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you for that clarification, Danny. What I'd like to just do real quick is show off some information can be found on the website. Actually, before you do that, because then we'll just wrap. Let me talk about, so I know there's been a lot of questions around a potential park idea. So let me share with you some background on a potential park idea. So first and foremost, not a dime, zero amounts of money. So let me repeat that. Not a single, actually, correction. Tracy Ferguson, I don't want to put you on the spot here. Was there any money incurred in the printing costs of those maps or those?
Yeah.
And thank you for the county for printing those off. So not a single dollar has been spent on a park concept for Greenville. So a little history here. FEMA works extensively in the days and months and weeks and months following the disaster. The gentleman that worked, who was the FEMA director, had made a suggestion with regard to how counties, cities, towns can work through a department within the National Park Service. So it's called Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. And they work with areas that have waterways, specifically just on the conservation and general like natural resource makeup, so they're not contaminated, things of that nature. So the conversation was started based also off of community input around having like a town center green or a meeting spot, et cetera, which was interpreted to be around a potential park idea. So the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program, a grant was submitted last summer of 2023, June of 2023, to get assistance. What they provide is technical support and assistance on what you see behind you there in the two different concepts. They're very clear that they don't fund it, they can't fund it, and that it's on the receiver to then pursue more concrete and more thorough plans. What is on our website and what was presented in the survey, both of those are concepts, a mix of ideas of what a park could look like. There's also the opportunity for there to be no park. There's an opportunity for the park to be a third of that size, a half of that size, a quarter of that size. A quarter of the property that you see right there was it's the property that used to house the community center that the Indian Valley Parks and Recreation District owned, and that parcel that they own. Pop quiz: who owns the parks in Indian Valley?
CSD.
CSD does. So the Community Services District actually owns the parks. Ironically enough, Indian Valley Parks and Recreation District only owns that parcel. But Greenville Park over here off of Hot Springs, the swimming pool, the basketball court adjacent to it, all owned by the Community Services District. So if anybody's going to spend a dime on a park, it would more than likely come from the CSD and or in collaboration with the Parks District, just so they can run programs there. But to date, nothing has been spent on those concepts. And until there's a concrete concept to go with, nothing will. And that's all going to come through community feedback. And the feedback thus far has been all over the place, from don't ever build a park here to, yeah, that seems like a neat idea, or could you make it smaller, or what is it for, you know? And the concept is really around, like, again, a gathering space, but if people want to have outdoor markets, if people want, like, if different artists want to have like an art show, if somebody wants to do a farmer's market. The list kind of goes on and on. It doesn't have to happen. Yes, ma'am.
How much money is allocated for the park, or is any amount of money?
Nothing yet, man, because we would have to apply, we'd have to get to the point of actually making it, what I've learned, a shovel-ready project. And nobody has applied for any grant funding for that yet, or county funding or any funding from anyone. So it's just right now, what you see right there behind over your back left shoulder, that's what you got.
So there's 7.8 million that you talked about earlier, that's not all allocated for a park.
No, ma'am, the Board of Supervisors have not made a determination on where and how they're gonna allocate that money.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Um, I remember this is the second meeting I've attended, and I want to congratulate Tracy for working so hard in the beginning of the first meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
And rank the projects. We put lots of dots on boards. And the community ranked projects that would be high in priority to rebuild the community. Tracy, do you still have that list of ranking? Would you share that list with everybody? Yes.
I think I have it printed out, and then there's also, if you look, so there's a board over there on the left that says February and March of 2023 community meeting input. Some of that information is there, but we'll definitely get that out to you.
It ranks high. A community green space in the core of Greenville.
So have we made progress on the other projects that were ranked?
I'll give an update later in the.
So Tracy's got a full rundown of a number of the things that are they're consistent with the county's long-term recovery plan. Anyway, that's kind of, that's what I have on, and that's the way it was. All right, let's do a quick website tour, because I know that there are gonna be questions, but again, there's often, in the last year, based off of recommendations from our steering committee and the good work of Taylor here, we've done a lot to, this is an enduring task, and I know everybody wants more information, and we're doing our best to provide as much information as possible. And if you have suggestions and things that you do want to know, please, just let me know and I'll find it. But Taylor's done a great job of kind of reformatting things. And so we have our homepage. If you scroll down on the homepage, basic mission and things like that, we have a community calendar, and I try to keep this update of things that I know. But if you know things and if you have an event that your group or organization wants, I'm happy to put this on here so that this could become a resource for Indian Valley-wide events. If you want to become a member, either an organization or an individual member, and the membership is really nothing more than it helps us keep track of like email addresses, and I can add you to an emailing list. It's not a cost thing or anything like that. It just is, it helps you be in the know. We have a number of quick links here. So here's a link right here to this meeting. So if you ever are unable to be here physically, and you'd like to just you can access this meeting via that Zoom link, as well as the steering committee. There's also a link here to some of the information that Tracy will talk about later. The Plumas County Wildfire Long-Term Recovery homepage, the Plumas County Building Department, North Valley Community Foundation, specifically the Dixie Fire Grant Program, and then regional news. The steering committee, actually, let's go to grant and let's go to the steering committee and then the grant information, because I think that's. There we go. So once again, there's the link, and you can join us anytime, the latest agenda. If you miss a steering committee meeting, you can go right here and click this, and there's a recording of it. So you can always go there. And then on the left are all the minutes, and on the right are all the agenda. And then down at the bottom, we have the treasurer's report, and Danny Steyer will be giving that report here briefly. But the treasurer's reports are always there as well. And then if you can go to Actually, let's go just kind of in order, rebuild info and stats. This is something that we put up recently, trying to, we get some reports from the county, but just trying to give, so the basic information up top is just how to go through the building process. And then if you click this entire page, it'll take you directly to the Plumas County, Building Department. But, these are some basic stats, working with, Mike Coelho at the, Building Department, just to refine a little bit of this and scroll down. Also, this is also what, if your home is within inside the Indian Valley Community Service District, these are the basic steps to get water and sewer hooked up, and then a little bit more. And then we're getting some PG&E information put up here as well to help with service connection for power. Grant and financial information. So this, still, I've been working on this, and the recommendation is to put more. So I will put more, and I'm gonna work with, North Valley Community Foundation this week. Also, so the Almanor Foundation, anybody familiar with the Almanor Foundation? It gets super confusing about who applied for what and where. So we're also gonna talk to the Almanor Foundation to separate out the things that they have, because those are, it's a separate entity, separate organization. Those are things that they're working on. But in the interest of just making it clear, adding more information here, and also that it's digestible, because I don't like reading 15-page reports. So I'm gonna try to just link it here to where you can click on things based off of what you want to see and where you can get the information to see exactly who's the grantee, how much was it? The description of the reason is already there, but like elaborating more fully on that and what's supposed to be the outcome from it. And my email address is right down there in the bottom left, patrick@bigcfire.org. So you can hit me up there as well. Meetings and slides and recordings, that's another place that you can find more information if you missed something. Plans, reports, and resources, that's anything that we get that, from another organization or even our own, like, we just try to put the information up there. That's just a kind of a repository to where you can look and see. There's the community park concepts. And it is 11:55. There's a survey there that we're gonna probably leave open through this weekend, and then it's been open for 3 months. It's been open since May. At a May meeting, I presented this information, and but we'll leave it. Yeah, we've got roughly 90 respondents at this point. And then information around the Recover California housing grant info, and I think Tracy might be covering some of that too. Questions, additional questions? Yes, ma'am.
So if someone wants to submit a grant for leftover money, do they submit it directly to the Butte Valley Foundation?
So the North Valley Community Foundation, that's a way to start, and some organizations have gone that way. So it either kind of goes top down, meaning it goes to North Valley Community Foundation, and then I meet with them every week, and then they say, hey, in the portal we had a grant request, or someone will come to our meeting and they will say, I'd like to apply for a grant. How do I do that? And always happy to help somebody get through the basic pieces.
So the submittal portal is with the Butte Valley Foundation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And that's an example. That's an example of what that portal looks like and the instructions from it. Additional questions, comments, concerns on this subject matter? There's plenty more, and I do want to give time to our presenters today. And some of your questions might get answered, but we can follow up we'll leave time on the back end if there are any, Okay, I do know that Kira King and Supervisor Goss, I know that you have something that you'd like to brief, or at least, yeah, I know your time is limited.
Our time is limited, yeah.
So who's up?
Go ahead.
Carissa and I are here on behalf, where'd you go? On behalf of the Indian Valley Chamber of Commerce, Carissa Joseph, Kira King. And we just had a couple updates with everything that's going on.
primarily?
We are starting our annual membership drive, and so, if you have been a past member or you own a past business, I have a whole list. These will be going out this week. We also this year have put a QR code on here. We're gonna start turning everything, moving toward electronic payment, electronic applications. You scan this, it will send you right to our new website where you can sign up and fill out this form, as well as pay. We have some bigger flyers of these that we're gonna hang around town at different businesses, the post office, the Dixie Fire office, where if you just walk up and scan it, it'll bring you right there so that we can start kind of cutting down on our costs for these membership things. This is for the 24-25 year. And you don't have to be a business. You can be an individual that just wants to support the
Organization.
organization.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so lots of exciting things on our website. We've had a few people say like they didn't hear about what was happening with Gold Diggers, those sorts of things. So Facebook and the IndianValleyChamber.org website, it's all been updated. We do have a media person now that's helping us push out all that information. So anytime you have any questions, forms, anything else that should be on the website, so please always check that. Let's see, committees and things like that. We're always really trying to get everybody involved in the community. It benefits us, it benefits the businesses. And particularly Gold Diggers, we're going to start in January this year. We would love to keep it going. Sorry about that. Oh, there we are. What? The only way Gold Diggers is going to continue is if we have people to help, and nobody has helped literally this last year, besides two of us. So we're going to start the committee in January, and if people want to come on and do that, let's have it. We're trying to get that softball tournament back, all kinds of things, but we need people to help to do that, or it's not going to happen.
We updated the website this week with some new events that we have coming up. There's music on the porch over at Crescent Country. We're talking about some of the parades that are coming up, supporting the post office opening, things like that. So not just the Facebook page, but also on the website, updating. Yeah.
And I'll start pushing out on the website, any business or individual who is members, so we'll highlight them monthly, bi-monthly, and really getting the word out about our businesses in our community. So exciting stuff. Come and join. Thank you.
No, but if anyone wants,
Well, good Saturday, I guess, afternoon now. Not a whole lot to talk too much about. I do want to emphasize that in regards to the tax relief bills that are floating out there, in about 4 weeks ago, we lost one of the battles. It was a tax bill that was tied with other things, such as child tax credits and whatnot, and that did not bear fruit. That is over with. Now we are moving into September, middle of September. We should see a bill that is going to address our need directly. So that bill, I hear, is going to be a lot better, more received on both sides of the aisle. And so hopefully we get a yes vote on that. After the Fire is actively contacting senators who is, the Senate is where these bills are getting hung up. It's not the Assembly or it's the Senate. So if you want to help, please get a hold of our senators here in super.
Is that bill, the bill that's going up now, is that a standalone bill?
It is a standalone bill, yes. And so state taxes, different story. The state of California is obviously in a little bit of a money crunch, if we could say. And so they're not really super excited about our tax problems up here. They're probably wanting to hold on to that money a little bit more. So we're still working with Dalley's office, both Dalley's, Megan and her husband and Brian. So we are actively pushing and continuing to push. But please reach out to all of your representatives at the state and federal levels for sure. Obviously, the post office is open. Amazing, isn't that really a good thing? We don't have to go to Quincy anymore. It's, that was a push and we finally got there. There was some small little hiccups, and we're up and running and, you go down and get your keys and get your, PO box. What else? I don't know. We have a thing. That's why Kira and I need to get back down to the spot. We have a poker run today, which we are a spot where you get a stamp, and we're gonna have like 100 something riders or something. Harley Davidsons. See all these Harley Davidsons coming through town. That's why. So anyhow, that's why we need to kind of get out of here sooner than so. Anyhow, any quick questions or anything like that for me? Yep.
You know, if money that, county is invested well.
Yes, let me touch on that real quick. The 7.8 is what she's talking about, I believe, and it is invested, and we are gaining interest on that. And we are actively having conversations, and we'll be having, like Patrick discussed earlier, our third ad hoc committee meeting in regards to how we're going to leverage. And I think the main thing is we were underinsured. That's number one. I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. We were underinsured on the substation. We were underinsured on the town hall and on the library. We got the 1.7 million for our insurance needs, and we are going to try and leverage that along with portions of that $7.8 million to make sure, because number one, at the end of the day, we have to have a library, we have to have a substation, we have to have a town hall meeting center. We're not going to argue about that. That is going to happen. How is that going to happen? That's the tricky part. We need to leverage the money. We need to leverage the dollars. Yes, we went after a CRC grant that we did not get, but there are other ones out there. There are other things that we can go after, and we can collaborate on. So it's my intention fully to make sure that the Board of Supervisors understands that those three buildings need to come back to Greenville. In what capacity? If it's in the safety center for the substation, and then it's in a joint collaborative effort for the town hall and the library in one building, or something, whatever that picture looks like, it's going to have to happen. So thank you for the question. Yes, it's being invested. We are gaining interest on it, but we are having active discussions around that 7.8. Yes.
I'm just curious, okay, hello. Since the substation is over by the makeshift fire department right now, which they're gonna be building out that spot, is that correct?
Yes.
Are they gonna try to continue being there, or the police or the sheriff's department?
Yes, so it's a collaborative effort between Indian Valley Fire, Plymouth District Hospital Ambulance, and Sheriff's Substation and Sheriff's Office.
Okay, so all in that same area.
All in that same area in one building. The plans are very similar to, I think, a building in Janesville, where they do the same kind of a scenario.
Thank you.
Yeah. Barbara?
I was wondering about insurance. Homeowners insurance has gone up for so many people.
Yes, it is a constant battle, constant fight with our insurance commissioner. We are looking, at RC. I'm Plymouth County's representative for the Regional Council of Rural Counties of California. And, we're constantly in discussions with our insurance commissioner on different ideas and how we can, number one, keep insurance companies from leaving the state. That's the big problem, is they said, forget it, we don't have to insure you. And so getting more and getting the California unfair plan, the California fair plan to a spot that is reasonable for homeowners. And then also working with the fire safe councils and getting folks their properties to a point that the insurance company can go look at it and say, you will survive a wildfire, and therefore we don't have to worry about you, and we will lower your rates at some point. But anyhow, Jane. Well, we are into our third meeting, and our first two were to kind of outlay what we were going to be doing and how we were going to do it. And so we haven't really gotten a full how should I say it, full view of how we're going to do that. But at the last meeting, I said exactly what I just said earlier, is that those three buildings are first and foremost for the county. And to me, the 1.7 isn't going to do it. A portion of that and some of that 7.8 is going to have to help to do that. And because we have to have the county back in this town. And what that looks like. But if you do see the mobile bookmobile down here at the spot, we have a library in town now. And so it's very small, but it is here. They are working on getting it plugged in and all set up. So should be good to go here by next week. Yes.
Why wasn't some of the money that came to the Dixie Fire Collaborative and to the county, why wasn't that moved over to help with the infrastructure for the fire, the ambulance, and the sheriff? Why wasn't any of that?
You're talking about the 17 million that the district attorney went after? The Dixie, well, because that was all gone through, and Patrick, I think, explained it pretty succinctly, that when they went for that civil prosecution, is that what it was? Yeah, civil prosecution, is that that's how the district attorney identified, or the district attorneys, I should say, identified how those monies were going to be spent.
But I remember lots on Tracy's boards, one of the infrastructure was to have the substation. So the money that came to the Dixie Collaborative for 3 million, why wasn't some of that allocated to these?
Yes, ma'am, and there's definitely the potential for that. Like, but the CSD, so the CSD, so the Indian Valley Community Services District, they're building the building. So they estimate roughly $6 million to build that facility to house the fire department, the substation, and the Plymouth District Hospital ambulance. So what Supervisor Goss was indicating is that there's an opportunity for the county to chip in at least to the planning, or to kind of get the CSD out the door. They have plans for it. They've got a lot of the work done for it. Now they got to get to the point where they can actually build it. There are limitations to the degree that the DFC can fund capital projects based off of its, because of the money coming through North Valley Community Foundation as a 501c3 organization. So there's rules, the DFC can't give money directly to an individual. You pay a vendor, somebody that's provided a service, that's different. But, you know, if you're like, I need $50,000 to buy my house, I can't, you know, there's nothing that can come directly up. 100%, 100%, yes, ma'am. And so there's opportunities through the United States Department of Agriculture, Rural Development Division, that the CSD could potentially apply for grants. Oddly enough, the Environmental Protection Agency has a tremendous amount of rural programs where there's funding for public spaces like this. So those are the things that the CSD is working on.
So if this is a public works project, will it go through the county?
It's anyone's guess.
Okay, you are under public works laws and the government.
So there's opportunities for that, but the county probably doesn't also have enough money that it got from its settlement and from its PG&E settlement to devote fully to fund these buildings entirely. What they can do is, since the sheriff's substation would be essentially a tenant there, they can lease it, they can lease space there, and then the CSD would be the owner operator of that facility because they have the preponderance of assets there.
So as a public works project, where does the money go to?
Well, it comes from different sources, and what Patrick is talking about is, you know, if there's a joint multi-purpose building, then there's a cost share structure amongst those that are occupied within the building. So to know that if the town hall and the library goes into a joint multi-use community town hall space, whatever that may be, the substation goes into the safety center. Yeah, so all those sort of, you know, what is the project budget? based on an engineer's estimate of what it's gonna cost to construct. All that stuff, to my knowledge, hasn't, we've had estimates, but we need now to get down into some numbers, into some budgets, and then understand where the money's coming
And
from.
it's very defined. Section.
Yes, ma'am. I think actually Trina had her hand up first, and then we can go to you, Danny.
This is Board Supervisor Goss for the town hall, library, and fire station. Substation. So when those, if there's a collaboration to rebuild in different places, is the county looking at the sale of those properties? Or
Yes.
using it in other ways? And then if for sale, how will that occur?
So so what'll end up happening is the Board of Supervisors, will have to determine either the library or the town hall or the substation is what's called surplus property. And when, that determination is made, then what ends up happening is it goes basically to the courthouse steps, and like an auction or any kind of a real estate sale, whatnot, will go through that process. But what you have to do at the very beginning is you have to offer it to certain governmental entities. I think there's a list of 200 that are federal, state, and other local special districts and whatnot. So you offer those first. And then I think there's nonprofits in the list, and so on and so forth. And you go through that list, check all those boxes. And if nobody wants to buy it for $1, then it goes to public auction. Okay.
Thanks for the information. Is there a time frame on it yet, or is it still kind of in the works?
It's in the works still.
So I got a follow-up on that question real quick before I get to mine. It's really a disappointment to me to have something fundamental to the town out of town. Rather than in town, it was always in town. We had the substation in town, we had the library in town, we had all that in town, and now you're advocating for the fire department and the police department to be out of town.
Understand, I get that question. And so if you look at different towns that have rebuilt and whatnot, and different ideas around that, is that you don't want your governmental agencies and whatnot right in the center of your retail area. That's just, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it's, it just doesn't work. And I think other folks can talk to, Tyler could talk to about that, but putting it on the outside of town is going to free up, obviously, other spaces.
But it wasn't in the retail area, it was on the edge of town, now it's outside of town, but I think.
What do you mean, the sheriff's substation is right in the middle of town?
But the fire department was on the edge.
Well, that's right in the middle of town.
No, it was on.
Anyhow, whatever.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but it was, now it's
Tomato.
definitely across the bridge out of town.
Yes.
All right, but it wasn't across the bridge out of town. But my question really is, the 7.8 mil. I've seen, it's on Facebook, here's a spending plan, and then there was some highlighted things that were apparently approved, and something about.
Nothing has been voted on.
No, but the thing is, it's just kind of like, oh, these yellow highlighted are highly supported, have high demand on it. And one of those is a foundation of a new economic zone or something. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I don't recall the thing.
Okay.
And that's,
It's right there. Patrick has it right there. You can take a look at it.
yeah. I guess.
That was provided to our committee by Adam Cox, who is the executive director of the,
Yeah, but I was just, but I was just curious, as the EIFD, it seems like a new tax board where in order to get that, right, it's a draft, okay, but it was just that EIFD, Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District, so, and tax, every time I see tax, I just saw this.
I understand you 100%. I get it. I don't want to give you more taxes or anything like that either.
Right.
And that's why that says draft, right?
Okay.
That says draft.
Right, I just,
It's an idea, so happy to welcome.
right,
Happy to welcome a counter idea or draft that you have, Danny.
yeah,
That can help.
I'm just bringing this up, I haven't seen it, I questioned what it
But
was.
it's not
Sure. No problem.
But it's also something that was submitted by the Community Services District as an idea.
Okay.
It was basically a conversation.
Yeah, I hear you, Patrick, I hear you completely, I understand that, and I saw this all by itself floating on Facebook, and so what is it? So that's, and I'm glad. I understand, Patrick,
Okay,
I,
all right.
you
So
know,
anyway.
we're in the same.
It's fine.
We're in this together, Patrick, you're the leader of our group, I'm here, and I just asked a question about this.
Sure, and it's just it was just a conversation starter.
Right.
And that's where we had to, that was one person's idea of how to spend the money.
Okay, and like I say, and when you see these things out of context, and I understand Patrick completely.
Yeah.
And I support that, but it's out there floating
Mhm.
unsupported.
At the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors is going to make the decision on how to spend that.
Okay, yeah, but, it's worth talking about.
Yeah, come on to the meetings. I'm more than happy to give you the Zoom link. You bet. Any other questions?
That, I believe Mr. Hollister said that money, the 17.2 million, that was more for homeowners or people who lost. There was one meeting I was at right after he got some money where if you could apply for help, I think it was for your home or something like that, but business owners weren't getting anything, as I recall. It's been a couple of years and.
Yeah, no, it was determined that, I think Patrick gave the breakdown of who got the money and why. And I think the Fire Safe Council with the $5 million was that you could utilize those dollars to help home hardening. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a separate grant that's underway right now, from.
Well, my question was, I thought at one point there was money settlement for homeowners from PG&E, but nothing for businesses. And I was wondering what kind of help the businesses that are trying to survive here are going to get in the short term.
So my understanding is that a business or an individual, they have the opportunity to enter into litigation against PG&E for a settlement. Well, they do. I mean, people do have that, they have that ability to do so. Up to date, between the CARES, ARPA, and now lately a for-profit community development block grant, Plymouth County has, they brought in over $1.5 million to help local businesses. So right now there's a grant underway and the grant guidelines are out and the application. Ms. Ferguson will give that presentation here in a little bit, but up to 25 businesses can apply for up to $22,700 to help with equipment expenses and operating capital or expenses. So we'll cover that here in a second. I understand there's a lot of questions around this topic. We do have other presenters that I know that they'll be able to elaborate on a few things. So don't want to stop a good conversation in its tracks. But with regard to what Kevin was talking about, what else do we have? I know that we have a question on Zoom around individuals potentially getting assistance with home building, and I'm going to touch on that at the tail end. And there's an organization called Hope Crisis Response Network that we've been working with, trying to find solutions to see how they can run their program here in Plymouth County. But I'll follow up when we get to the end. Yes, sir.
On the safety center, there's always concern when you're moving emergency vehicles in and out of an area. You don't want them pulling right out into traffic in the middle of downtown. That was always a concern. I was on the fire department here for 45 years. That was always a high concern. So moving the safety center out to where we have more area and you can see further up and down the road for both fire, ambulance, and the sheriff is highly desirable. We don't want them pulling out into town when kids are walking to school and things like that.
No, that's a great point. Great point. So for sure. So any other questions?
Question. The applications, I didn't mean top down. You said that the Butte Community Foundation is the place that's administering the grant. Is that the only portal that put in the grant?
Yes, ma'am. North Valley Community Foundation. Absolutely. Yep. So the other thing is like the last one that the steering committee elected to fund, that individual just came and said, I want to apply for a grant, and then help that individual get started.
So that they you helped them fill out the grant application?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That was my question.
Yes, Trina.
Just a little addition to that is that, the Dixie Fire Collaborative does have a certain amount of money, and I was just voted on in February, so I'm not completely clear how things were handled before that. But you can apply directly to the North Valley Community Foundation as well.
I think I've covered this
Okay,
a number of times.
Awesome. All right then. Thank you all. And just a friendly reminder, Facebook is not the source of all news. Plymouth's done right over here.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, we will have more time for questions, at the end, but we do have some presenters. Let's see. I think we're gonna go with the treasurer's report right now, and this will kind of elaborate on more funding, discussion. But moving forward, if you have a question for the presenter, what we typically do is that those presenters will join us at the end, and they'll all be up here so that we can get to the rest of the presentations. As we've got less than an hour. We can go longer, but I know you all have a Saturday to get after. So, Mr. Steiner.
Howdy, folks. So, one thing to quickly bring up, we did go through onto the webpage and you saw where you could see the past treasurer's report. And so I want to point that out, remind people of that, because I did make a treasurer's report last month, but we didn't have a meeting last month, did we? But it's out there. So I'm speaking more on current changes. And if you want a more detail, you go back and reference that as well. So I just want to make sure that, it's on the website too, if you missed something. So just this is a summary here. We at that point was asked about getting funds, interest on money that was received. Yes, we've got interest of 5,700 and I have to stop there because 700 some odd dollars because I get read them all. But that's how much we got in interest. So for August, on the 12th of August, that came in. And so that brings the total input is, $3,105,199.72. So that's what we had really come in. We have the grants, we had no changes in grants this past period that we voted on and we're but we did fund for the kids, what do we call it? The design and also we also funded the resource that are actually and I'm gonna lose it here. I'll have to look over here. My reference. Sorry, the youth summer design program and the Dixie Fire disaster care management was in the past, but I didn't say about it in a meeting like this. So I wanted to bring that up. But we didn't have any at our last meeting additional. So have $1 million in change in grants. And it's here as far as expenditures, we have changes to the website that need to be paid for and such. But we backed out some charges that we had from PG&E. That's why I put that in red there, because we want to put that directly to supporting the coordinator's office and such. So that's to pay for keeping Patrick warm in the winter, well, and cold, chilled in the summer. You got to keep him chilled. So that brings our total expenditures to $559 and $559,000. Yes. 259,000, yes. 650, yeah, maybe Tyler can come up with it. Anyway, so the bottom line here is our regular balance, and that's kind of the biggest thing you want to look at is we still have $1,667,369.46 in the checkbook. And of that we have commitments out there of $304,620.00. So we have, look at here, what our cash flow here is the total money out we have, and we've spent 56% of the money that has come in. All right. And so that's what you kind of look for here. But then this is because of those commitments, that decreases the amount that we have in the balance here. So we have the balance, but we have commitments here that'll reduce. But if we actually have to pay those commitments, it's going to reduce its actual available funds. So let's go into detail later. So this is just shows a little bit more. This is the details of the summary. So really, shows here the info here that increases due to interest. Here's a summation of where the changes were here as far as expenditures, bringing the expenditures to this amount. What's to say, like I said, we didn't have any changes in the grants. But this is just a shot of what I've already explained, okay, really. But I encourage you to look at this detail as to see what's going on. So we go to the next slide here. And the details here, you can see this interest income is just broken out. We see it there. And I'd like to go through this because this will get actually into the recorded data. So when anybody pulls this up and starts looking at the presentation of the meeting, they'll see all this. Go to the next, please. And this is actually goes there, and you see here the detail of where the grants have gone out. So you can see this every time. I present it every time, and it's kind of old, so I don't really want to go through it, but you can see this is detailed here and in the report. And go to the next one, we'll get to more recent. And so here's the Plymouth Strong, and that's the note here. Okay, so we had the summer design, youth design program going on, but it was funded and it went through Plymouth Strong. That's how it got to the entity that actually provided the program. So that's a kind of interesting note here. We try to actually help you trace where that money went. And then we have, this is that last, the Dixie Fire Disaster Case Management that we helped support, and that was a split between the Dixie Fire Collaborative and the North Valley Community Foundation. So that's a total grant. So we go ahead and pay. And these are the expenditures, and I keep this current as some of these will change, and so the website here changes, and as the expenses come up, I'll just keep this as a running total. Go ahead to the next slide. And as you see, just to pick on it, but you see here, this is I'll keep this changes the date as to when that last payment was made to wherever in here. And this is the secretarial services that was provided through June of 2024. So that's the total amount that was expended to that. All right. And we go ahead. And this is where we got as far as committed funding that we haven't spent it yet. We haven't, but this is what we believe that we are pending an approval or they get their actually finalized in the submittal, especially like the Rancheria. Well, that's if they get the settlement or not, they got some other funds coming in that might actually free this up for us, but it's a potential that we have. But go ahead. So this is just once again, shows you can do the division here to come out to see what the actual funds are and how I came about this 56% of the funds spent. So I just want to have this here so you can follow it in a summary page. This is the detail that backs up the summary. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And again, if there are questions, yeah, you can ask those to Danny after. We'll have everybody back up. Yep. Tracy Ferguson, Plymouth County Planning Director.
And up here in the back, if grab one while I'm speaking. Grab one so I have-
Okay, hello, Tracy Ferguson, Plymouth County Planning Director. Happy to be here before you today. I have a couple updates. One is on the long-term recovery plan, and then the second is on a grant, an economic development grant that the county has now. So this timeline on the update for the long-term recovery plan starts in 2023. And we had some community meetings, you may recall, over in the cafeteria, and I was talking about the poster boards and the voting and whatnot. We do have one poster over here, was from the February-March timeframe, talking about input, vision, values, so forth. So we had meetings in, as you recall, February, April, September, and we did come to a recovery vision with recovery values and 27 projects. So where we are today, 2024, we, at the beginning of this year, met with the RSF, that's the Recovery Support Function, All Hands Working Group. So we brought everybody back together of those 5 RSFs, infrastructure, economics, health and social services, community buildings, and natural and cultural resources. And so those meetings happen February, March, April, May. So we've been consistently meeting now in early 2024 through the spring. And we've refined the recovery project. So you might not see 27, you might see less. You might see about the same. So we've been talking to the champions and partners to confirm those 27 projects since community outreach, was about a year ago or more in the spring of 23. So what's happened to those projects over the last several months? Are they viable? Do we want to move forward? Are they happening otherwise? So we've done some work there with understanding where we are today so that our long-term recovery plan, when released, and we're looking forward to an October release of the public review draft, will have the latest, greatest information possible. So it's, that's going to happen. And then we'll have public comment with outreach and meetings and so forth. Next Friday, the 23rd, we do have a meeting scheduled for the All Hands Working Group. So if you would like to attend, that's at the Fairgrounds building, the Mineral Building at the Fairgrounds in Quincy. 1:30 to 3 o'clock, again, next Friday. There will also be a virtual option. So we'll post that agenda. If you would like to attend virtually, you can certainly do that. And you can listen to what's going on now, again, with continuing to refine the projects, talking to the champions and partners. And then we have developed community profiles of each of the communities that, saw destruction in the fire. And then also we're looking at spotlights. So organizations and agencies working towards wildfire recovery, we're going to spotlight those. So you have a question?
It's kind of a leading question, but what was the role of Dixie Fire Collaborative, North Valley Community Foundation, and other funders in everything that happened from 2021?
Yeah, so I've skipped in the timeline. Thank you. So if we go back, Dixie Fire Collaborative was at the very, very leading edge of recovery. And you know what, Sue? I went through my stack, everybody. Here's a little anecdotal. If you've been to my office, there's a stack of wildfire recovery papers this high. I actually went through it this past week and saw everything that I have saved over the last 3 years. And it was a September 2021 Dixie Fire Collaborative agenda. So the fire, August, I have that agenda, with bylaws, governance, structure, like, let's go. So you were there the next month, Dixie Fire Collaborative, yeah, brings a tear to my eyes, yeah. Whew, okay, so yeah, that was really like to see, where we've been, where we are, where we're going. And 3 years, we're in long-term recovery. So anyway, I didn't think I'd get emotional there. So yeah, there's been a lot of work, and Dixie Fire Collaborative, in partnership with the county, we were not, I'll not say call it what it is. We were not, we were there in the response, while we were recovering. So county was doing both roles with OES, sheriff, so forth. So there was a lot there. And our environmental health department doing debris removal. We have the state come in, Cal OES, we have DTSC, like all the, again, I'm remembering all the things and where we've been and where we're going. So anyway, yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah. So I jumped to the timeline here from last year, and then here we are. So no, I think when I was going out to those meetings in 2023, it's perseverance. It's not giving up. And, we're going to get there. And, I had mentioned that for the county, leading this long-term recovery plan in collaboration with the Dixie Fire Collaborative, the least we can do, right, to organize this recovery in a way that we talk about our projects, we talk about who's involved, and we talk about the funding, which is so important. And then, the administration of this and who's going to, follow through. And maybe I wasn't going to talk this much, but I'll keep going on the county and the recovery coordinator that, the county is going to hire. So we have the DFC, and you all stepped out again first, and got Patrick on in September of last year. And so that's, and here we are now, the county, we're government. So we're catching, we're there, and we're a partner, but we have a process. And so the process, to get that recovery coordinator position as a classification, up through human resources, over to the unions to meet and confer, to make it so forth and so on. So trust that the county and Supervisor Goss standing up here in his remarks, you know, that we're a partner in this for sure. And you have my word on that, and I've been there the whole time, so. Okay. So looking forward to the long-term recovery plan being out, I have a $250,000 planning grant where I'm using $65,000 worth of it to hire a designer to put this plan together for us, so that it's, you know, visual, it's highly just approachable and readable and understandable, and so forth. So that's happening right now. We have that consultant on board. They are Mentir Harnish, based in Sacramento, terrific planners. And so they're going to help us put this document together in a design format with our content, okay? And all that content from the previous meetings and so forth. And maybe I'll jump to the punchline on the town center concept. So on our recovery website for the county, we do have all the summary reports. And so this was the June meeting, which I guess I don't, June of 2023. Maybe I don't have, we'll see, we did more than I thought. So anyway, the town center project, right? So, or the town center concept, number one. Yeah, exactly. So what was a town center, town plaza concept, town green? It received the most dots. Okay, so when I said it was, you know, high on the list, it received the most dots. Town center, town plaza. Second was community center. Third, Greenville hardware store. Fourth, Greenville pharmacy. Fifth, a bank. And the sixth, Native American Cultural Center and Museum concept. So there you go. That, you know, just for, let's say, factual purposes of previous community output, or excuse me, input and outreach, that, you know, in the core of Greenville, a town center, a green space concept, a plaza. Okay, so November, I'll continue here. We will have a revised version. So October will come out for at least 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks to get your comments. We'll have outreach meetings, including Saturday meeting, and then I will do a roadshow throughout the county. We will receive comments. We'll go to the board. We want to hear what you think. Certainly, this is your plan in recovery. Again, the county is stewarding this. We don't have to be doing this, but we're doing this for a commitment to Greenville, Indian Valley, the areas, you know, that saw the fire, and the Beckworth too. So this is the 2021 wildfire. So East County, Beckworth, and then all the communities affected by the Dixie Fire are in this plan and discussed. And then by December, if, you know, all goes well and timing, but we don't, you know, this is, again, your process. So we'll see how this goes. Best case, we're going up through the DFC and the Board of Supervisors in December for what is an acceptance of the DFC and adoption by the Board of Supervisors. And there's a recovery email and a recovery website again. Any questions on where we are at in the long-term recovery plan process?
So the list that you just, yeah. Can you repeat that list one more time?
Yeah, and Patrick has the hard copy here that we can give to you
Was
too.
that was a category of projects, correct?
Well, no, so this was ideas about a town center, okay? So in our outreach, the idea was, does Greenville want a town center in the core downtown Four Corners area of Greenville and, you know, in the vicinity? And so what would a town center look like? What components would make up a town center kind of in an urban scape? And so those top components of what a town center would look like included the town green, town plaza, so a park concept, you know, big or small, community center, Greenville hardware store, Greenville pharmacy, a bank, and Native American Cultural Center and Museum.
Sure, and I understand that. Thank you. What about the infrastructure projects that were a priority? Can you go over those list priorities?
I don't, let's see if I have them in front of me. There were a few, like the Greenville Infrastructure Master Plan, which is happening right now and is funded. So Tyler could speak to that. You know, certainly.
Also on the county's website, there is the prioritization.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Each of the parts groups
Okay.
that came initially from 120 different projects that were narrowed down to these 20.
Or 53, I think it was, right?
Well,
Or you guys were, yeah, right, 100 is, okay.
Early space, we had discovery. We had 120 projects through community engagement, feedback, dot voting, lots of that. narrowed that down to, I think there's 23 on the county's website that are incorporated in the long-term recovery plan. Those have been isolated as the highest and highest.
Has there been a prioritization of funding conducted along with those projects? And is that on the website? Sue, you're nodding your head. Is that true? We're always looking for.
Yeah, so these are, you're talking about $100 million plus of kind of project funding,
Well,
so,
we only have so much money.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to, whether people like it or not, we are going to be dependent on state and federal funding.
Yeah.
So if people don't like the government or whatever, we're never gonna build back if we don't access all that money. That we have to do, but we're not gonna do that. So do we have a prioritization of projects?
Yeah, so it's been also sequential of what kind of funding is coming down at what time, like where are the grants at? And how can we use our dollars to use $1, maybe to bring in
So the
$100?
priority then you're saying is the priority based on the availability of funding and not necessarily what the community prioritized.
No, so the community has prioritized these 23 projects,
27, yeah,
27. I thought we got down to 23.
27.
27.
At the time, 27 prioritized.
Yeah, so we have these priorities. That's what we've heard from the community very clearly. And what we're trying to do, we collectively, not 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm talking about probably 60 people at the end of the day, are trying to figure out how to then take the projects and identify the funding sources that are coming down and who can actually hold that, right? Because our second is not just, is the funding coming down, but who has capacity to hold that funding and to be able to execute that project at the same time.
Have you set up a criteria in order to rank and to give weight and to give transparency? And
I have not, and we have not, but if you have that skill set and do it in a timeline that is meeting what we're watching, like,
I would.
come on board.
Thank
Come on board, not a meeting, I'm saying you come in and start to create the criteria, because our capacities are very limited, I would say. And so where we're at today, we're 3 years out, and in the best cases of scenarios, 5 to 7 years. That is the best case scenario we could have to have our core infrastructure and buildings back. And we're tracking about 12 to 18 months ahead of schedule right now because of where we're at. So if you have capacity and skill set, come on and create this criteria.
I'm learning by experience, so one of my next questions, and don't have to answer it now, is a lot of money has been already distributed. What projects have been completed? What were their outcomes and how was the money spent? And did they meet the criteria that they had anticipated? And it may not always be in their control, but I would like to see some reports.
So I can speak to some of the grant funding that I have managed. Recently, I put together a table that talks about all the recovery grants that the county controls and to a certain degree or is a part of, and where they are in the process. So total budget spent to date, remaining, exactly what you're talking about. So I'll post that up on the wildfire recovery website too, so you can take a look at exactly what we've been funded for. Is it economic development? Is it infrastructure? Is it housing? What categories are these? Yeah, I think it's over, including our CDBG DR, which is the Recover California money, which is 24 million, total. But yeah, I mean, it's substantial. If, I'm looking at over 7 million myself that I've been managing, so.
Folks, I would like to, if we could.
Keep going, yeah.
And then, so if you have a call, then my back end time, if you have any question or any topic that was discussed there, you can definitely ask.
Yeah, and quickly, if y'all recall last August, it's been a year, I'm part of what is the American Planning Association. It's my national association. And the California chapter has a CPAT group, that's the Community Planning Assistance Team, and technical planners were in the county last August to speak to much of what you're talking about. So we have these plans and ideas, but how do we actually make it happen? What is feasible? What are priorities? So the document I'm reviewing will be released in the next month or so from CPAT, which does drill down into exactly what you're talking about. So the plan talks about some criteria and priority making or orders of operation when you start a construction project. So look for that document from CPAT, and I think some of it will be there. It's ideas and thoughts about how we get to criteria, what may we use, not telling us what to do, but giving us tools to make our decisions for those projects. So, okay, well, we'll move on to then the Dixie Fire Recovery. This is our business economic development grant out right now. So this was 2 years ago, Sue Weber and I sitting around right now writing grants. So I was writing a lot of grants 2 years ago with Sue and Paul. And so this was one of them. And it's okay. This grant, in addition to the grant that I mentioned, was the $250,000 planning grant. We got a $750,000 economic development grant. These are annual, what they call community development block grants, CDBG from HCD, which is the State Housing and Community Development Department, up through HUD, the Federal Housing and Urban Development. So what we have in our current economic development grant, so when we look at what we're doing, it is for-profit businesses. And so we're looking at those specific geographic region, which I'll talk about. It's called our grant eligibility zone. But in general, if you are a for-profit business directly or indirectly impacted by the Dixie Fire, so both, if you lost a structure yourself, your business, or if you were displaced, of course, you were evacuated, whatnot, indirectly affected, you will qualify. If you're a startup, post Dixie Fire, because we want to encourage economic development and businesses to come back, whether you were, pre-Dixie Fire or post-Dixie Fire. So what we're calling startups post-Dixie Fire are eligible. But then you're to have a physical location within this grant eligibility zone. So if you quickly go to the next slide, there's a map. So we have an online mapping tool to enter a business address. It'll tell you if you're in or out. And it's generally these areas. So they are specific to a census tract in 2 block groups. It gets technical, but this will meet our national objective up through the CDBG. And this is the area. So Greenville, Crescent Mills, Taylorsville. Unfortunately, we couldn't stretch to Genesee. We wanted to, we couldn't get there with the metrics, and Indian Falls, and then down the Highway 70 Canyon. Okay. So here's the area generally. If you want to know exactly your address, your business address, go to this online mapping tool, or you can call me, certainly, back to the previous slide. So online only businesses as well. Previous slide, sorry, Pete. So let's say you have a physical location now or in the future. Let's talk in that grant eligibility zone. If you're an online only business, let's talk, because there's some criteria to meet, but we want you to get there. And then that you are a business that provides neighborhoods serving goods or retail, other goods and services based businesses. So this is, businesses that provide, again, goods, services, professional services to what is all of Plumas County. So not just this geographic area I'm looking at, but you are serving all of Plumas County and beyond, certainly if you're online. Eligible activities, business, equipment, and supplies. So it has to be obviously tied to the business as a business economic development grant. You're rebuilding something back. You have something, you need supplies. Whether they be office types of supplies, or you're in construction, or, the list goes on and on, other equipment. And then also operating capital expenses. So payroll, insurance, utilities, and rent and mortgage would be what is operating capital expenses. So up to $20,000 per grant. There is an incentive if you purchase locally for those eligible activities, that bumps you to the $22,700. But here's kind of the big picture rules on who's eligible and what are the activities and the amount. So next slide is again the map. Figure out if you're in the location. And the last slide is the draft guidelines were released July 22nd. They're up on the planning department website. We had some informational meetings. Business owners came out, asked fabulous questions. I revised the guidelines to be as flexible as possible, to have as much information as possible, while still staying in these federal CDBG rules, which are pretty tight. It's definitely a box, but we're trying to get there on making as most businesses eligible. I went to the board on August 6th. So you want to go see my staff report, that information. There was a revised guidelines redlined. We talked to the board about a few big picture questions. We got some answers. I brought all that back to the federal CDBG folks, and I got some other answers. So the final guidelines to be released next week with the application. I'm so close, and additional information needs to come. Total of 567,500. We do want to, in our national objective, meet no fewer than 25 businesses. So that's our goal of serving the businesses. And then it is a first come, first served basis on a rolling basis. So as soon as application is out, you know, to apply, once you are complete in your application, you get in the queue. And again, rolling into all the money is exhausted. So I'm a grant contact, also Clint Cobley as an advisor to the Sierra Small Business Development Center in his role with SBDC. We have an MOU that he is to help on this grant, and he is to, you know, if businesses, which, you know, having a business plan is a prerequisite, you know, one of the things that you need to submit with the grant, other items, if you don't exactly know what things mean or need help writing a business plan, Clint can help you. And you know, he can give you time there. So that's all I have on the grant. Any other questions? There is in the flyer I mentioned, so grab a flyer. Thank you.
We'll do the questions at the end.
And then
The other grants for businesses that went out. And how much?
CARES ARPA, $1.5 million today has been distributed to businesses.
Yeah, so the micro enterprise grant, that's the CARES Act grant. I'm on round 2. I'm executing those grant agreements next week with those grantees. So that was another $500,000 plus or minus to the micro enterprise, 5 or fewer employees. And so we had, 20 recipients in the first round and 13 in the second, duplicative of the first. So those monies are going out direct to businesses as well currently. Thank you.
All right, next we have kind of a dual effort from both the Sierra Institute and the Forest Service with Joe Hoffman and Kyle Rogers. Thank you, Joe.
Hey, everybody. I think we'll be quick today. But Kyle Rogers, if you don't know me, I work at the Sierra Institute, I'm Assistant Director. I lead our team of staff, working with partners to plan and implement natural resource management projects across the county and beyond, really. You want to introduce yourself, Joe?
Yeah, Joe Hoffman, I'm the district ranger at Mount Huff Ranger District, Plumas National Forest.
We go forward. So we wanted to update this group on the North Fork Forest Recovery Project. This is a Forest Service project that the Sierra Institute is partnering with the Plumas National Forest to do the planning for. It's outlined here in this green. It's about 166,000 acres. It runs up the canyon towards Canyon Dam, across sort of the top there to the end of Genesee, and then back around Indian Valley. So it's a big chunk of the land that burned in the Dixie Fire, and part of the Plumas National Forest has a suite of projects called the Recover Projects that they're planning across the forest, and this is one of those. I think the other thing to mention here for folks that aren't familiar with the project is that it's kind of a all actions project. So it's not just reforestation, it's also treating remnant green stands, as well as doing watershed restoration actions, but really with a heavy emphasis on community protection and well-being post-fire. Next one. Okay, so this was sort of the reason we came to talk to you all today, was just to update you on where we're at in terms of timing. We'll go quick because our battery's running low. Sierra Institute signed an agreement to work with the Plumas on this like May of 23. And I think all along our goal has been to do implementation in 2024, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second. But in this sort of box chart here, you'll see a bunch of jargon if you're not a Forest Service planner. But basically, the key point here is that there's a document out now that's outlaying what we intend to do as part of the project. It has a proposed action, as well as the analysis of the impacts of the proposed action and things that would happen if we took those actions. And we're welcoming comments from everybody about that. There's some specifics here, and I think the slides will be shared right afterwards. So if you want those specifics, you can read those about how to get your comments in. I guess the thing that I would add about comments is like, be constructive. And by that, I don't necessarily mean tell us we're wonderful, but if you have a suggestion, then make a suggestion. Don't just say, hey, I don't really like what's here. Tell us how it could be better. And be specific. If there's a really specific thing that you care about, it's your community, it's, 50 acres that you know a ton about, then be that specific. That's helpful. Joe, anything else about comments?
That might take a couple minutes. First of all, I really want to thank Sierra Institute. They've done a great job through this process. We've got a lot of big planning efforts like this. 170,000 acres is a lot to try to do NEPA on, and we've got like 3 or 4 of these efforts going on right now. And so that's where our partners come in, and Sierra Institute has been fantastic. They've been doing outreach with, the public. We had some public meetings last year, and we'll have another one, 21st, right? August 21st. That's this week, this Wednesday. It's in Taylorsville at 5 o'clock to talk about this draft environmental assessment, which is a huge milestone. And I've come here and talked about it, worn out that map that Kyle showed, right? You've seen it many times before. But yeah, it's a huge milestone to try to describe the activities we want to do in that big area, describe how they comply with all those regulations, Clean Water Act, Endangered Species Act, et cetera. And the Sierra Institute staff did a great job of that. Forest Service was reviewing all along. We've been meeting monthly, and then we review the document. It's a Forest Service document, but a lot of the legwork is done by Sierra Institute, and they did a great job. So it's 30-day comment period. It's a big milestone. It's a good time for folks to see a little more about the project. I looked at it the other day. It's 273 pages. So just don't get daunted. A couple tips. Here's one way is contact Liz Ballou. She's the NEPA planner on the district. And another way to find all this is just Google North Fork Forest Recover Plumas. And probably the easiest thing you'll find is the Plumas Sun article. So thank you. And there's a link in there and just take you right to it. So the big document, we do structure them to try to make it, it's a regulatory compliant document. So it's not going to be short, and it's a big area. But we do try to make it simple. So focus on chapter 1 and 2. That's about 30 pages, 40 pages. Gives you an idea of what we're proposing. And then look at the maps in Appendix A. So we try to do appendices so that you don't have to read through 273 pages. Just start with the first 2 chapters. Because chapter 3, the body of the document is all about the effects, and that regulatory compliance. There's herbicides. We've gotten a lot of questions on herbicides. So even that chapter 3 is like an overview. And then there's a specialist report if you want to really dig into it. So it's kind of tiered to try to make it simple, and then you dig in deeper. The appendices, again, Appendix A is the map, and that would be good maps. Good place to start. And then if you want to know more about the treatments, that's in Appendix C, I think, and then, how et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. But yeah, again, Liz Ballou, if you have any questions and you're looking at the document and you're kind of daunted by it, just reach out to her or myself. Liz is probably more available, easier to reach. And if you, again, Google it or go to this web, well, that's how you submit comments. But if you Google it, you'll find it. Elizabeth Ballou is pretty easy. Elizabeth.ballou@usda.gov, or I can give you my card or whatever. So appreciate, looking forward to hearing from folks on the project. And you can also come to the meeting on the 21st at 5 o'clock in Taylorsville.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah.
Joe. So I mentioned our goal is to get to implementation in 24, which was ambitious. We're still hopeful. We're exploring some pathways to expedite some of the implementation so it can move forward before the NEPA is fully complete. Gets very technical. Happy to talk to you about how that works if you're curious. But basically, within this 166,000 acre area, we acknowledge that there are some actions in some areas where there's really strong agreement, right? We all agree we need to thin some of the remaining green stands in areas where there aren't a lot of resource concerns. And so how can we push those actions forward? We've been having conversations with the Plumas as well as the regional office and national office, the Forest Service, about expediting that. We recognize it's been a long time since the fire already. And so we're optimistic that, later this fall, maybe there'll be some trees coming down as part of that work. And also focused around Greenville on prioritizing reforestation. So recognizing that both reforestation and the green work has a level of urgency around it. And then one other plug for future input. A lot of the areas around Indian Valley, you all know, are hard to access just from public lands, basically. And so part of what the Sierra Institute has been doing around Taylorsville, for example, is building some private lands treatment component to connect to those public lands. And I guess maybe it's just my personal thought, but I think there's more opportunity for that around the valley. So we're going to be doing some outreach. Vincent's in the back, Bella Bledsoe also on our staff. We'll be having some meetings really focused on implementation. So this week, thank you, Joe, the 21st, focused on the planning, the project overall. Following that, we'll have some community meetings focused just on implementation so we can really talk to you all about nuts and bolts about how we get to important acres. I think that's it. Contact info here for Forest Service with Blue, and then also our staff, Bella Bledsoe.
Yeah, Sierra Institute can help you navigate that document too. So lots of people available to help. Okay, we'll try to keep it short.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Any updates from Indian Valley Parks and Recreation District?
Thank you, Patrick. For those who don't know, the Indian Valley Recreation Parks District, after the fire, was super struggling. They were not able to even hold any kind of conversations around anything because they did not have enough board members. Every now and then they would get an extra board member, they'd attend a meeting, they'd take care of whatever they were going to discuss, and then somebody would drop off. So this was going on for a while. Kevin came to me and asked if would I be willing to get on the board for a period of time to help move things forward. And when we talk about help moving things forward, decisions weren't being made around the law claim, decisions weren't being made around insurance. There was a grant out there that was not being looked at. So I said yes. I don't know why I said yes after my experience with the Dixie Fire, because I am going to address that, but I said yes. So where we are today is we're still working with the lawyers on our claim, which most likely will not be finished until early 2025, January, February 2025. Currently, we do have a grant. It's $177,500. I worked with the state. They amended it. We got all the pieces in place where we can now use it. We have a board. Our board is made up of Jared Morris, Kaylee Bentz, Janine from Taylorsville, Janine with no last name, and Joan Carter and myself currently. So our first priority was to get the grant in order. We have voted and made a decision that we are going to add from input from the community, particularly the new moms and toddlers. We are going to use about $50,000 to create a toddler zone at the park. We're going to, with that includes covering of all the equipment, covering the bleachers, and then also adding another set of dugouts at the other field. That still leaves us money, and we're actually going to use 10,000 of that for upgrading a water system there. So that is, a lot of our work was around that, getting that in place. We successfully opened the pool this summer. I was super excited. We were able to, I went to the schools. I got 3 young kids to become lifeguards because that was a big challenge. So we have 3 lifeguards. We had a swimming instructor and a aerobics instructor. So we added 2 water stations and a little kids pool for the toddlers that came. So this, I will say the pool, and we got shade cover. So if you haven't seen the pool, you should go check it out. It's really sweet. Our next steps are now trying to look at programming for everyone in our community. And what that means is doing a lot of legwork of finding space. So we are currently in the process of working with John Dierfendorf from the county and HUD to be able to use some space at, I always want to call it Golden. Green Meadows has a big open space, and we're looking to potentially do 3 days a week senior programs, exercise, just a way for them to come together as a community. We have been partnering both with Ryan and Nikki, being able to utilize the school space for our for all the kids in the valley. Mostly, it will be mostly programs after school.
And then having conversations with the DFC using some of their space, leaning more towards winter indoor toddler activities. So, and basically with regard to looking at the community center itself, we are constantly at the table. If the town center gets built, that's where we see space and place for recreation as well. So that's pretty much all for the Park and Rec. I'm up here today because I'm going to say two things, and I'm going to try really hard not to be massively angry. There are people in this room and others who have worked tirelessly since day one of this fire. And I want everyone in here to know, I would never say this publicly, but because of what has been happening, some people may be aware of it, some people may not be. But we have been trashed on Facebook to the point where someone took a picture off of my Facebook on a vacation I took and implied that I was able to do that because of money I was taking. That's a line for me. That is defamation. Because I'm here to tell you, from August 2021 till today, I have not taken a dime, not a single penny for anything I have done. Bloom is strong, who we sat at the table after the fire, because our mission was not to help the fire. That was not our mission. We spent money, we went to the state, we rewrote our mission because the problem we had was there were not nonprofits who could take money that people wanted to give. And I'm going to be clear about this. Our nonprofit has done zero. We take zero administration, not a dime. The grants we applied for, we applied because we were requested and asked. The grants were trees removed from Canyon Dam. We are still working with the Indian Falls water system. We worked on all the projects that we did to get where we are. And it is unacceptable to me. And people should be checking themselves. Almost everybody in this community has my phone number. If you have a question or you have a concern or you think something's happening, call me. I say it all the time, call me. Do not use Facebook to trash people, because I'm telling you what's happening right now. People who are working their butts off, they're getting tired. They're getting tired because all anybody does is come to the table with negativity. And if we lose all these great people in this community, we're screwed. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Sue. This is a portion of the presentation where we do share out. So those that are not presenting, but they have information that they like to share from their organization, or they know something, or they just want to give a share, hey, we're doing a community supper on Monday, hosted by PRS over at the Taylorsville Campground, which is occurring, by the way. Does anybody have a share out? Yes.
I mainly wanted for everyone on Facebook to make sure they saw my face. My name is Tyler Pugh. If I don't know you, I'd love to get to know you. My company is called Elemental P Design. And myself and Sue were trashed. Beyond trashed, like it called into question integrity and my character. And those are, I can deal with a lot, but what this community expects that people step up into positions out of pure volunteerism. That can't happen.
Well, it did from August until April.
of 2022. You stepped up because we had no money.
Yes. Anyone, but here's a public forum. Here's what you should know. One of my most treasured possessions on this earth is a little metal card that I got in high school graduation, where I was basically nominated as the community member. And it comes with access to all the games and events for free. Basically, I don't have to pay admission because of the work that I did in high school. I hold that near and true and dear, that it is partly my responsibility as a community member to show up when I'm needed and my expertise can be there. At the same time, I bring an expertise to the community and need to get paid and need to pay my bills at the end of the day. I've been able to balance that because I've been able to work a little bit, identify where the next need is, volunteer a time, work a little bit, and been able to do that. But if the community has the expectations that this work is only going to be done with a very, very small amount of money in the grand scheme of things, $7.8 million is not that much. It will not build this town back. It might build one project, but it will not build the town. The expectation is that money is what's going to build this town. That's unrealistic. The second thing is it takes time. I understand everyone's tired. I understand everyone is hurt. I am too. I understand you're sad, frustrated, impatient, right there with you. But if you ask questions, I'm proud of the work that we're doing, and willing to answer things. But if you come at accusations, that doesn't go anywhere. That just tears down all of this work that we've spent the last 3 years doing. And I understand people don't understand everything that's going on. It is a lot. There's so much going on. And I'm happy to sit down and chat with you about what it is and what we're doing for infrastructure and how we're using $375,000 to go after 50 million right now. I'm happy to have those conversations with you because I'm proud of the work. The time it takes right now is we're in this big trough, right? We're going to be here for 2 years. Like I said a moment ago, the best case scenario, and this is where you have the governor and the mayor and direct funding from FEMA, is 5 to 7 years. That is the best case scenario across the US, and that's Greensburg, Kansas, and you're welcome to check it out. Sue and I drove there. So it takes time. My only request out of this is you be kind to each other. Everyone is hurting. And those that are trying and those that are stepping into leadership positions in this room deserve kindness. Those that are hurting with their home loss and their businesses deserve kindness. Everyone in this community deserves kindness and should emanate kindness to each other. When you take this trauma and this hurt and pain and project it onto another human with accusations or intuitions or like just beating them down, you tear apart what is very fragile right at this moment. And each of us can make that choice in our daily life. So I don't know if that was a share out, but I needed to say that. And I thank you all for being community members.
Wow, I should come to more of these things. He mentioned the gold card thing. I just want to be clear. I gotta get on the X. If you're not sure what he was talking about, because he didn't make it immediately clear, his name's up there from 2000 to 2001 on the Citizenship Hall of Fame, Greenville High School. Okay, so if you're not totally clear on that, that's what he's referring to. So my name's Ryan Schrammel. I'm the principal here at Indian Valley Academy. We just moved on campus. We're about 90 students, 7 through 12. Yay! I bring that up just because, you know, it was brought to my attention, this whole little Facebook thing yesterday. And so I myself scrolled through some of the comments just to know what I was stepping into, because I think that's prudent of myself as a leader. And I did see one of the comments was asking about, we need a normal school. Well, I'm happy to report that we're gonna have a normal school here at the high school next year, okay? And what I've done, I've got somebody who should be handing out, I've made enough for everybody. I apologize to you Rotarians in the room because you've already gotten this feel from me earlier this summer. But we are a normal school. Yes, we are a charter school, but that is a publicly funded school, right? And Plumas Charter School has been around since 1995. We're charter 146 in the state of California. That means we're one of the first charters ever to be chartered in California, and we're still going strong, right? That talks about our viability, okay? If you flip out, and if you look at that front page, you'll see, guess what? We look like a normal school. We have 180 instructional days on the calendar, right? We take breaks around fall for Thanksgiving, breaks at winter for Christmas, breaks in the spring, right? And we do things that look like a traditional school, right? We go to career days over at the junior college. We do homecoming. We have career fairs. We celebrate President's Day. We do homecoming, not just in the fall, but also in the winter. That's Slam Jam, right? So we do a whole bunch of things. We also, something I might have to explain down there towards the bottom is we do PBLs, project-based learning, which lo and behold became something of conflict from what I understand after looking at Facebook, because if you look over there to your all's left, that's actually a product that started as a result of one of those project-based learning periods. How dare my students get down and design themselves a park? How dare they, right? You know, we should have adults telling them what their park is going to look like and where their park is going to be, because they don't know any better. In fact, if you look at over there, these parks are kind of neat because they tell the story of our students during this time period. If you look at one of those designs, it has Gaga Ball. Can somebody tell me what Gaga Ball is? Anybody? Raise your hand if you know what Gaga Ball is. I know you know because your kid went to the camp, right? So right in the aftermath of the Dixie Fire, we were able to go out, get a grant that took our kids down to a place called Westminster Park in Sonoma County. And it is a magical place. And there those kids got to play, were introduced to a game called Gaga Ball. And so when they designed their park over there, they wanted a Gaga court, okay? So no, this wasn't designed by outside entities or anything like this, right? It started right here, well, not right here, started 15 miles that way in Taylorsville, right? When we were doing an educational experience for kids that looks a little bit different than normal school, right? We took 2 weeks away from our normal academic schedule and we focused on the rebuild, right? We had some students that looked at building a community center. We had the younger kids, because they're younger, look at building a park. And that's what they came up with. And then some wonderful professionals took all of their input and they made that. And I saw some other comments about why don't we just do it down. Can anybody forgive me? You know, I haven't been around a long time. There's some things I don't know. Why do we call the park? Because somebody said, why don't we just use the park that we already have? What do we refer to that park as? The LP Park. What does LP stand for? Louisiana Pacific, right? Because the land was given to us by Louisiana Pacific. So we built a park. Okay, what responsible parent in this room, right? Like, so I work here at the school, or Heidi Kingdon, or Crystal works here at the school. Crystal's our new kindergarten teacher. Give her a hand. Crystal, you have kids too. You have kids. Four. Would you feel comfortable as a mother of four saying, hey kids, you know, mom's got to work a little bit later in the classroom today. Why don't you go play at the park? Walk a quarter mile down Hot Springs, cross the bridge, walk another 1/8 of a mile down to the park, which may or may not have been vandalized the night before because the park does sit on land donated by a mill that sat on the fringe of the community.
We've been there twice, outside of Little Leagues.
Yeah, it's not convenient for families. The park is not convenient for families. It just isn't. Do I appreciate the park? I do. We go out there, we play Little League down there. It's got 2 very workable ball fields that we can take advantage of. It is not a place I just send my kids. And no responsible parent should. Okay, so yeah, we do need a park. And the reason that that location was picked was because we had a community center there with a park that was utilized. So it makes sense and it's what kids want. And if you want young families to move into the area, then you've got to start looking at what families need and what kids want. You can't just say we want families and then not do anything to actually make it attractive to them. Okay, and we do have young families, believe it or not. We don't need a thriving business here. We have linemen moving up here every year for PG&E with young families. We have teachers with young families. We have things that attract families. Problem is they don't have a lot to fall back on once they're here. Okay, some of the things that they want and need. Okay, so I kind of got off on a tangent. 180 instructional days, lots of things that regular schools look like they do. You'll look on the back. This is our course schedule, in case you're wondering what it is that we teach and who teaches it. Really fun fact about my teachers. You'll see I have about 9 to 10 people on staff. 6 of those people on staff graduated from this high school. 6, which is pretty awesome. You know, when I graduated from Greenville High School in '99, there were 2 or 3. There was Trav Rupke, and there was Veronica Tilton, who's still teaching with us. You'll see her name down there, Veronica. That's Veronica Viscara, now Tilton, another GHS grad, along with Carol Baum and a few others. So those are the things that we teach. I also took the opportunity to give you guys our sports schedule for the fall. So if you want to come out and support the students of our valley, we've got JV, probably JV volleyball and varsity volleyball, and we've got varsity football. And you've got their game scheduled through the rest of the fall. I hope you come out and support our students. I work right there. So if you have any questions, I'll be around. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, we do have another share out. All right.
It's good to see everybody here, and I am a moderator on that one Facebook page, and I did send a message and spoke directly to one of the people, and it is a really difficult time in our community. This isn't actually what I came up here to say, but when I got here, I was like, and that is not productive. And so then that person posted something on another page, repeating the message that I sent to them, and it's like, okay, we're going down that hole. But what I really want out of that is to redirect and refocus some of those frustrations, long-term, like I'm part of the tribal community. I've been in this place all of my life. My grandmother went to high school here. My dad did, my kids did. It's important to me, and I'm going to stay here. And those things hurt all of us. And when people are not constructive, no matter what, I want to help find a way to redirect that energy. And there are some valid frustrations, you know, when your home burns down and your community's gone and unrecognizable. I will honor that frustration every time, but I will say it in any forum that let's redirect those frustrations to positive, and how can we find a place where each community member and move forward. So anyway, what I came up for was I had the huge opportunity to work with the San Francisco Waldorf High School architect design class and Indian Valley Academy kids. And so there's this really weird looking structure that's being built with support of the Greenville Rotary and a lot of volunteer community members. But again, to be involved in that and to work directly with those students from San Francisco to see that bridge built with Indian Valley was phenomenal for me. So I wanted to just give a shout out to that process, and for all the Rotary members and other people who are still showing up to finish that. And it was a phenomenal experience, and a shout out to the students, not just of Indian Valley, but also the San Francisco Waldorf School and the effort that it took to make that happen. So shout out to our students and our community. Thank you.
There's a question on Zoom regarding that kiosk. What is it and how was it funded?
I just volunteered, so I showed up to help, and so I can answer those questions.
Yeah, so the kiosk was funded through contributions from the Almanor Foundation, North Valley Community Foundation, and Dixie Fire Collaborative. I have a million grants in my head, so I have to like kind of close my eyes and recap. And Bread for the Journey, yeah, Chamber. So it was and Rotary. Thank you. Yeah, what's that? So a lot is basically the answer, and we couldn't have done it without this group effort. Thank you to Julian and the Rotary, and we have talent and skill in this community that help to lead and direct youth voice and vision and new expertise in a way that is stunningly beautiful. It's weird, it looks strange, but if you start to correlate the relationship to the land and its goal as being a welcome center for this community and relationship to basket weaving and the First Nations that were here way before we were. Thank you to Trina, like for your time and your heart in this community. It is one of the most beautiful for me manifestations of what this community can be, between the collaboration of youth and older and our new and our old all together in it. So our hope is that that's a welcome center. It will have Rotaries helping to set this up. Kest was a huge part in helping to facilitate. There's so many names in this beautiful object. And so Trina, thank you for bringing this up. I should have. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do a quick Q&A for the presenters, and I would just share that again, there's nothing wrong with this agreement. There's nothing wrong with dissent. In fact, it's absolutely healthy in this process. And that's why this continues to iterate and it continues to mold and shape based off of, some of the things that Tracy described. That was information that was provided through the spring of 23, springboarded from 22. Have thoughts, perceptions around certain needs and priorities changed? Of course. And so, since there aren't like 67 concrete trucks backed up, ready to get going, right? It can change. You just need your participation. There's nothing wrong. Like I said, with please disagree, poke holes into it. There's nothing proprietary here. And this isn't, people being told how it's going to go. The feedback, it's going to come from everybody that's here on Zoom, wherever it is. If you have an idea, please bring it, specifically around economic development, individuals. That gets brought up all the time. Again, through nonprofit status and things like that, it's very difficult to work around those things. But if there are ideas and ways to innovate, bring them to the table. Happy to have it. First and third Mondays, 3 to 5. Come on, bring it. And like, you might be the smartest person in this room. You will never be smarter than the room. Okay. So it takes that type of gray matter, everybody working together. It's a huge lift between nonprofits, other organizations, the county, principal and foremost throughout this process to help lead. And it's going to take time. Somebody said it's a marathon. If you know anything about endurance sports, this is a triathlon. We got multiple different sports of multiple different endurance phases, but it's going to happen. It just, starting with a little civility and respect. And again, you don't have to like everybody you work with, but you just, paraphrasing from an earlier conversation, it's okay to disagree with someone's ideas or opinions on something. Just, keep it above board, don't attack them, right? That's okay. Now, Q&A, we kicked our timeline, but I know that there are some additional questions. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have one more shout out. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane. Get on the X. Oh, sorry. X is the spot. I'm Jane Braxton. I'm speaking here as an individual. This morning, we've heard some messages of real pain, personal pain, community pain, and in them I hear a lot of messages of hope. I'm looking around the room and thinking that a lot of these messages are going out to the choir. It's the choir that's here. So I think it's incumbent on each of us to take these messages, which have been heartfelt and hard to express. You know that from the people that spoke, and these people that spoke because they've been here since Springle was still smoking. Take these messages out to the people who are not understanding what this group is about. They're not understanding what the rebuild is about. They're not understanding that this is a triathlon. We have a long, long way to go, and we have an excellent start. Take these messages and work with those folks and see if you can get them to have a little bit of understanding. If you can't get understanding, maybe you can at least get them to shut up a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, and one more, this is just to get the word out, Greenville Elementary School is in the process of hiring paraprofessionals, instructional aides, people to help in the classroom. So if you know somebody that's interested in that type of work, school's right around the corner. So please have them reach out to GES for that information. All right. Yes, sir. Yes, 100%. Come on up.
Well, I got some good news. If you don't know it, on Wolf Creek Road, the Baptist Church is starting their building. And in mind, keep that in mind, the idea with that building is it's just not for the church people, it's for the community. It will have recreation possibilities in there for kids. It can be used for whatever people need it for. That's the intent of the church. And also it's aiming toward kids. That's the main thing. The stuff that was written about my son, got a little mad. You couldn't believe that, you wouldn't think I get mad about anything, but I did. What people don't know is when the fire started, he had a business in San Francisco. He came up here, him and Jared fought the fire, saved 30, 40 houses. People sent us cards from all over. We used all our equipment. We didn't charge the Forest Service on the state one dime. It was to help our neighbors. He worked 15 hours a day doing that during the whole time. Now I was laid up. I had my knee operated on. Unfortunately, I already been there. I got two boys. One of them's a logger and one of them's smart. Yeah, Jared's not here, but anyway. Jared told me how much we rent our equipment. People don't know what it costs us to do that. It doesn't matter. We were going to do it anyway, but it was expensive. And so he did that. He's been here from that day. Tyler's been here doing everything he can for this community. Now, he has to live, but I did find out on Facebook that he was getting lots of money. So he lives with Valerie and I to save money, but now we'll be able to start charging him a high rent, you know. I mean, think about that. He's living with his parents where he can afford to be here to help the community. Okay. 25 years ago, if that was a man who said those things, I'd punch him in the nose. But I can't do that. So I can only tell you here that, and also our family, by our desire to help the community, has tried to do everything it can. We're going to continue to do that no matter what naysayers or blah, blah, blah say. And we'll continue to do that, support the community as every we can. That was one good news. Second thing is Joe, with the Forest Service, and you know I'm always supporting the Forest Service, but anyway, I'm glad to hear that they may be doing work around here and relieve the fire danger. We also has a road problem, and I've been working with Joe on a way to solve that. If that gets solved, and we were able to get some logs into the mill will start running again. And that employed 9 people locally, and we're ready to go do that cleanup. Joe knows that. I've told him enough times, but right now Jared's headed down to Cohasset to help those people clean up their problem, but we'll be back and do what we can when we have the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you very much, Randy. All right, we will move into Q&A. So if you presented, gentlemen, if you could join us, Tracy, if you could join us. And then, so I do know that there was a question with regard to Hope Crisis Response Network. So this was a program that's tied to some of the work that was done up at Copper Creek Camp. So Hope Crisis Response is a company, or correction, not a company, they're a nonprofit that has worked extensively in the Paradise area. So I think they just wrapped up their project in Paradise, and they have built in between 15 and 18 homes. I don't want to misquote exactly how many, but they're able to do that through a grant called the Cal Home Grant. And that's how they've been able to build homes for people that were, number one requirement is that they didn't receive a PG&E settlement. And then maybe they were underinsured or non-insured. So that's how their program that's the initial basis for their program. And then they work it through an organization called Housing and Community Development, which is the state's equivalent to the federal Housing and Urban Development, which is the federal department, and then HCD, and then they administer a grant called Cal Home. Plumas County does not currently have that grant in operation. it's possible that they can do that. So that's one avenue where we would look to Hope Crisis Response to help us. Just had a meeting with their director. His name is Kevin Cox, and he's worked extensively in that Paradise area. He's still interested in seeing what they can do now here in Plymouth County. One of the things that we talked about is, so some have been in a position to rebuild their home via insurance and PG&E settlements. Tier 2, working on the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Grant right now, which is currently underway, taking in enrollees. That's another opportunity for those that can that would like to apply for that to then have a single family reconstruction home built. So we're moving down the dominoes. The next domino is to figure out when we get to another population of people that are totally without an inability to rebuild their home. Perhaps that's where Hope Crisis Response can do that, exclusive of that Cal Home Grant, of which that's the way that they normally operate. So we're trying to figure out what that population is to see if that can be successful. And then number 4 is that Hope Crisis Response is also offered to be a general contractor in this area, but they need to find out more about the market, because also what they don't want to do is destabilize the homegrown contractor market, right? They don't want to come in to take business away from another agency. So they were looking to see what the demand is. So it's kind of those 4 ways to get Hope Crisis Response Network involved in this community. So that's where that stands. All right, questions? Yes, ma'am.
In the NEPA document, do you have an action in the NEPA document that will help reforest buffered private lands?
Buffer, what do you mean by buffer?
Well, buffered lands, you mentioned that there was an opportunity for private lands to also do replanting. Is there an action in the NEPA document to make that happen?
The NEPA document's all about activities on Forest Service land. So that'll come in to play more in the implementation side, is that we want to coordinate our activities with the private land activities. And like Kyle was saying, one of our first projects we're trying to tee up for this fall, if we can accelerate it, it tears off of some work that Taylorsville Firewise is doing. And so, yeah, we want to coordinate, and there's, okay, all right.
Do you specifically call that out in the NEPA plan?
Yeah, I think if you look at Appendix G, I think is the one, right? Kyle? We go into implementation plan, and because it's such a big project. So there's going to be more dialogue as we start implementing stuff. Yep.
If it is called out in the NEPA document, maybe there's an avenue to get some funding to help those private property owners collaborate with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just having the NEPA done gives private landowners that are adjacent, you know, and say that they're coordinating with the Forest Service, and the NEPA's already done, and we're working together, so we're gonna work cross boundaries, yeah.
How many responses have you got from the community?
Well, it's just open for comment on August 9th. So
What was the first 30 days?
So it's 30 days, started August 9th, and we'll go till September 9th. So kind of early in the game so far.
So it's the first comment.
No, the first comment period was actually last fall when we put out the proposed action. That's the NEPA process, right? First you give a proposed action. We got a lot of comments. We got dozens. Board of Supervisors, I think so. I think the county made a plan. I don't have to check.
I don't think they did actually.
Okay, well, we talk regularly. Yeah.
We have the coordinating council to communicate. But yeah, no, I want to read this though. I was just sitting there like, I want to make time to read this. So thank you for the first 30 pages and the ideas to like not be so overwhelmed with reading the document, because that's important.
Kind of a pyramid. Start at the top, you'll get a good idea, and then you want to go deeper.
Are there additional questions?
I will look, Tracy, that 500,000 you got was from like CARE Act? What was the name of that one?
So CARES. So again, up through HCD, the state housing and community development, up to HUD urban development, right? So CDBG, CV, it was CARES Act CV 23. Yeah.
And then the planning grant, 200,000.
Yes.
Do you have the objectives on the website of what that money that was gonna, the outcome of that money that?
Yeah, the objective of that is the long-term recovery plan. So that is the deliverable, is to deliver the long-term recovery plan and then also to fund implementation projects within the long-term recovery plan. So I mentioned $250,000 less admin gets us up the plan. And also, we're looking to do a housing study and a, economic development absorption study, market rate study to really understand and again, get down to in, you know,
Is that scope on the planning commission website?
no, but I can put it up.
That'd be great.
Any addition? Yes, ma'am.
Treasurer, how is the money being invested that is sitting and not being utilized?
It's being invested, through the North Valley Community Foundation. I don't know exactly what it's putting into or not. I guess I'm hearing T-bills. But it's being invested by them and then they periodically infuse it into our account. I don't know the type, well.
Treasury bill is what they invested.
Parks. I'm sorry, I was moving my car during the parks update. Is the park the kids are designing, is that to replace the one out of the?
So this park project has, the Indian Valley Park and actually the CSD owns the parks. You would think I was Italian, wouldn't you? The CSD owns the park, so ultimately the goal is whatever decisions are made with this, we would leverage money together. Like do recreation components of the park while they do the ownership and maintenance and things like that. So, yeah.
Well, I have heard that we're trying to do two parks, is that still? Or is there supposed to be just?
So the,
Oh, okay, so this is a survey and a possibility of a plan for a downtown park. And what you probably missed is that we're doing some upgrading with a grant that we have, the Indian Valley Park and Rec, with the LP Park.
And that would be basically for games, like.
Well, for games, and then there was a new play structure, and young families, I think there were 13 young women approached me and said, is there any way we can get a toddler zone down there because the piece is too big for their littles. So we are, Patrick's actually helping us with that, with the research, and then we're hoping to have a toddler zone and covering everything and the bleachers and adding dugouts to upgrade that. And then this becomes a whole nother project.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
any additional questions from anything presented today?
At the next meeting, could you have the Butte Valley Foundation?
So I'll say this one more time. It's the north, and this is for your own edification, ma'am, but so that you can find it. Because if you look for Butte Valley Community, you're not gonna find it. It is North Valley Community Foundation. It's very important that you understand that so you can find the information that you want. So I'm not trying to come off the top ropes here and correct you. What I'm trying to make sure is that you have the right information. 100%. Yeah, and they've come to a number of our meetings. So program manager, her name is Kim Dufour, and often their general counsel, who's Bill Hubbard. They've come to a number of our meetings, and we're gonna have them back. Yeah. Now, good question, because I think we'll close it out here. We did not have a July meeting because of gold diggers. And I had recommended that we go to a bi-monthly schedule every other month for meetings. We've been doing monthly meetings, and I'll be perfectly frank with you, attendance has been kind of low. And it's not, I'm not lifting cinder blocks here all day to coordinate this meeting. It's fine, we can do it. But there is time and attention to get a lineup of presenters and valuable or meaningful information that people want to hear about. We do that on a monthly basis. And so I was trying to go every other month to see like, hey, can we really hit it out of the park by going every other month? If that's not the case, we don't have to do that. We can do this every month. I just, show of hands, you like the month? You want every month? Gene? Okay, I got some every other month.
Well, this meeting was different, the format was different, and, everything kind of was
blowing up over there. But this was a different type of a meeting that brought a lot more current information.
I beg to differ, but I appreciate that feedback because that lets us know, really, like, we can kind of like bullseye this. Because, to me, this looks like every other meeting that we've ever had.
Yeah.
But I think the upfront, if you're talking about the Q&A upfront, if that's something that you like, then we can, that's a sustain and we can keep that. All right? You like monthly. Okay, how about this? What I'll do is I'll send out some type of survey via and it's great if you have your email address back there. I'll send out a survey and we'll just kind of test we'll get a pulse. Because happy to do either or, it's just really what the need is. 461. And growing. All right. Oh, Danny wants the last word.
A couple, and as a product of being the primary, elementary, and high school, and a professor, I appreciate education. And appreciate the people in education, and I appreciate, well, Trav's not here, but his father was our band teacher, music instructor here. And somebody's grandfather was our history teacher. And I like, excuse me?
About his great grandfather.
Well, I don't know about his great grand, and but I just want to appreciate, the normal school. Okay, I just want to say the normal school that they've got that education running through their blood. And you get into education if it's not in your blood. So I want to recognize that and thank you, Ryan, and Gabe, please take that back to Trav. Trav helped educate Ryan so he could participate and carry on the tradition. But that's just really important. But it also, so anyway, Ryan, thank you very much. Thank you. One more thing is I think, I know we started on that Q&A thing a little bit. We had some presentation, but I think we didn't totally embrace that. And that's what we were advocating for. I think we can do that over the end. We got some feedback. I think it's a good thing. So maybe we get people on board, educate on what we're doing as Dixie Fire Collaborative, then we can maybe spend more time with getting that. And it's a thing, I think it's a work in progress to try to acknowledge it's a collaborative effort. We want your input. I'm not throwing stones. I'd like to bring stuff out that I see somewhere else, bring it here to the public forum, speak it here. Because it's out there if we don't bring it in, as we acknowledge some of the hurt people have, but also I want to seeing stuff out there, we'll bring it here and talk about it. So it doesn't build that dark cloud out there. Let's have it here and keep it clear and clean and civil. Thanks.
Well said. All right. Thank you all very much and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And please feel free to contact us with any additional information or questions.